This video is about CELPIP listening part 4, listening for viewpoints. Yes, we are moving into one of the trickiest sections in the entire CELPIP listening test. And honestly, this is the section where even students with good English sometimes lose marks very unexpectedly. The reason this section feels difficult is because you are no longer listening only for information. You are listening for thinking, and that changes everything, right? In part 3, you mainly follow the facts, plans, changes, schedules, or decisions. But when it comes to part 4, the exam suddenly becomes psychological. You must understand opinions, attitudes, hidden agreement, partial disagreement, emotional tone, hesitation, sarcasm, priorities, and of course, perspective shift. So, this is why many students say, I understood the words, but I still got confused about the answers. Because part 4 is not testing vocabulary, it is testing whether you can understand human viewpoints the way people naturally communicate in real life. And real conversations are rarely direct. So people soften their opinions, people hesitate, they partially agree, and people change their minds halfway. People say one thing politely while actually meaning something stronger. So this is exactly what self test here. So today we are not doing those basic listen carefully tips. We are going much deeper. We are going to discuss unique listening psychology, hidden answer patterns, emotional traps, speaker personality clues, and many more. Okay? So first you should understand the real purpose of part 4. Most students think I just need to hear opinions. No, you need to understand the relationships between opinions. That's pretty important. So that is the real challenge here. Sometimes speakers they strongly disagree, mildly disagree, and sometimes they pretend to agree. Sometimes they gradually change opinion. They support something emotionally but not logically. Or sometimes they agree with conditions and self loves these gray areas, okay, because real communication is rarely black and white, right? So I'm just going to give you important strategy. Please make a note of it, okay? First strategy here is you have to stop listening to sentences, start listening to personality. This is extremely advanced strategy. Yes, in part 4 every speaker they has a personality pattern, right? One speaker may sound cautious, other may sound emotional, other may sound practical or skeptical, and other may sound optimistic, sometimes defensive, frustrated, or diplomatic. And that personality helps you to predict the answers. For example, if a speaker constantly talks about risk, cost, problems, limitations, they are probably the cautious speaker, right? If another speaker talks about opportunities, innovation, future growth, then they are probably more optimistic, right? Now, why does this matter? Because self often ask which speaker would mostly likely to support or what is the speaker's attitude towards so and so. And if you understand the personality direction, then your answer becomes much easier, correct? And the next strategy here is watch for opinion layering. So this is one of the biggest hidden patterns in CELPIP. Yes, speakers often they layer the opinions in stages. For example, stage 1, they introduce the idea. Stage 2, they acknowledge the advantages. And stage 3, they introduce concern. Stage 4, they reveal the final opinion. So these are the opinions layering, right? So weak listeners often choose answers too early before the speaker fully finishes building their viewpoint. Example, just listen to this carefully. At first, I thought replacing traditional textbooks with tablets would improve classroom learning significantly, and in some ways, it has made information more accessible. However, I have also noticed that many students become distracted much more easily during lessons. Now, the question here is what's the final viewpoint? Not fully positive, not fully negative. It's a mixed one, right? So, self absolutely loves balanced opinions because they are harder to simplify. Now, the third strategy here is emotional volume predicts important opinions. So, this strategy is incredibly powerful because when speakers emotionally intensify their voice, important viewpoints usually appear nearby, correct? So, you have to listen for moments where speakers sound surprised, frustrated, passionate, doubtful, defensive, or excited because emotionally charged sentences often contain the real opinion, the strongest viewpoint, or the final conclusion. Now, listen to this carefully. Honestly, what frustrated me most wasn't the delay itself, it was the complete lack of communication from management. Now, many students think the complaint is the delay, but emotionally, the speaker emphasized the lack of communication. That's the true viewpoint, correct? Now, the fourth strategy here is to detect fake agreement. So, this is one of the hardest traps in part four. Sometimes speaker sounds like they agree at first, but they actually disagree politely afterward. Okay? For example, I see what you're saying, and I agree that expanding the downtown area could attract more tourists. I just think the city should improve public transportation first before investing in large construction projects. Now, are they fully agreeing? No, they are partially agreeing while redirecting the priorities. So, self allows this type of indirect disagreement because many students only hear the first agreement sentence and they just follow with the options, right? Please don't do that. Then the next strategy is follow priority language. So, part four, speakers reveal viewpoints through their priorities. You have to listen carefully to words like more important, the main issue or the bigger issue, the main concern, real challenge, what concerns me most, biggest problem, what matters most. So, these type of phrases usually reveal the speaker's true position. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to give an example. Listen to me carefully. So, the topic is about should universities continue hybrid learning? Okay, welcome back to Campus Conversations. Today, we are discussing whether universities should continue offering hybrid learning options now that most campuses have fully reopened. Joining us are Professor Alan from the Department of Sociology and Student Union Representative Maya Patel. Thank you both for being here. Professor Allen is speaking. Happy to be here. And Maya is saying, thanks for inviting us. And the host is telling, Professor Allen, let's start with you. Do you think hybrid learning should continue long term? Alan is telling, well, I think hybrid learning certainly provided flexibility during a very difficult period, and there are aspects of it that many students appreciated. For example, recorded lectures allowed students to review complex material at their own pace, which can be extremely helpful academically. However, I do worry that relying too heavily on virtual participation may weaken classroom engagement over time. Then the host is asking, what concerns you specifically? Then Alan is replying, honestly, classroom interaction is not just about receiving information, right? Universities are social learning environments. Students develop communication skills, debate ideas, and they build professional relationships through face to face experiences. When participation becomes mostly digital, some of those opportunities naturally decrease. And Maya is telling, I understand that concern, but from the student's perspective, flexibility has become extremely important. A lot of students are balancing jobs, internships, and family responsibilities now. Hybrid learning gives them more control over their schedules. Then Professor Allen is telling, that's fair, and I'm certainly not suggesting universities eliminate online access completely. I just think institutions need to be careful about assuming convenience automatically leads to a better education. Maya is telling. Yes, of course. But honestly, many students felt traditional learning models were already outdated before online systems were introduced. Some students actually participate more confidently in virtual discussion than they do it in a large lecture halls. Then the host is telling, that's interesting. And Maya is also telling, especially students who are naturally shy or anxious in crowded environments. Online platforms sometimes create a more comfortable space for participation. And Alan is telling that may be true for some students, but I have also noticed increased disengagement in many online classes. Cameras remain off, participation drops, and students often multitask during lectures. From a teaching perspective, it becomes much harder to maintain academic energy. Maya is telling again. I don't disagree with that completely, but honestly, I think the bigger issue is how online learning is designed. If virtual classes or simply long video lectures, students naturally lose focus. Interactive formats usually work much better. Then the host is telling, so both of you support a mixed system moving forward? Alan is telling, personally, yes, if it's balanced carefully. And Maya is also telling, I would agree with that. I think flexibility matters, but universities also need to protect the social side of education. Okay, so here are the possible questions that you may get here. For the first question, what concerns Professor Allen most about hybrid learning? The correct options out of these four is classroom interaction may decrease. And for the second question, why does Maya support hybrid learning? Because it offers scheduling flexibility. And for the third one, would both speakers ultimately agree on the right option is hybrid learning should be balanced carefully, right? See, this is what both speakers agreed on, right? So you should be able to identify the viewpoints of each speaker and, of course, the entire overall conversation summary. Got it? Okay, so that's all for today's video. Kindly like, share, and subscribe for more self-help tips. See you in the next video. Bye bye.